I wrapped my BMW F30 myself, and so can you. Well, sort of. I'm not gonna lie. Doing this was one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life. It will test your patience like nothing else ever will. This was my first time ever wrapping a vehicle. I did have lots of help. You'll see some names on the screen now of people who I'd like to thank for coming to help me. It was an experience I will never forget. I estimate that this took me about 60 hours total, including the prep time, to do this wrap, which is insane. I think if I did it a second time, I would probably do it in about half the time or 3/4 of the time, but I don't think there will be a second time. First, let's start with the basics. The color is Avery Dennison Gloss Passion Red. I chose it because I think it's a really nice kind of muted red tone. It's not too bright, but still nice and red. It looks kind of like wine and it just absolutely shines in person. It's a gorgeous color. To do this wrap, I had to order 60 feet and then another 5 foot, and I still could have ordered a little more. I had to cut a few corners with that even, so I would say 70 feet for your first time wrapping is a reasonable amount to buy. The two hardest panels to wrap were, of course, the rear bumper and the front bumper. The front bumper took me about 6 hours. The rear bumper took me about 5. So they are incredibly difficult. And that was after gaining all the experience of wrapping the rest of the car. I left those two for last. The learning curve of wrapping is incredibly steep. We started with the fenders. Our first fender took us 3 hours, which is crazy, but it was the first fender. And our second fender was on track to take us about an hour. But right at the end, we messed up and the material discolored, meaning we had to start the fender over. I thought I was gonna have this done in a weekend, but no. It took the entire weekend, including staying up till 4 a.m. one morning. And then it took me an entire week of working on it before and after my normal job. And then Saturday night and the entirety of Sunday and part of Monday to finish it. So that's over a week with working my full-time job to finish this wrap, which is crazy. So the question is, how did it come out? Was all of this worth it? I don't know. It looks pretty good on camera, and that's exactly why I did it. I did it to further the content, basically, but it looks great on camera. In person, the closer you get, the longer you stare at it, the more you can start to pick out little flaws in the wrap. I have to rewrap my passenger door. I'm not even gonna show it on camera because I did it at 4 a.m. when I was still learning, and I was so frustrated. I just kind of finished it, and I totally just cut corners on it, and I went to bed. I have to rewrap that door because of it. I'd say it was worth it, but you have to keep in mind a few things if you're gonna do it yourself. The main thing is, if it's your first time, especially if it's your first time, it is not going to be perfect. No matter what you do, you are not going to get this wrap perfect your first time. This is so far from perfect, it's not even funny. I cut so many corners and just said, okay, yeah, it's fine, so many times when doing this. And the result shows. But the thing is, it looks good on camera and it looks good from a distance, and it drastically changed how the car looks. And I honestly don't think I did too bad, but it's not perfect. Moving on from the fact that this is far from perfect, I'm an incredibly impatient person. I get impatient so quickly and so easily, and it was so hard for me to say to myself, the more I rush this, the longer it's gonna take. And that is the advice I'd give to anyone who wants to do this. The more you rush this process, the longer it will take and the worse it will come out. You literally have to sit there for hours on each panel, and it will be incredibly tedious, especially if you're impatient like me, but it's what you gotta do. You have to be in a state where you don't have to rush yourself to get this done. The more you rush, the longer it will take and the worse it will look. You have to make sure you have the proper tools and the adequate space to do the wrap. I was wrapping in, I'd say, average size 2-car garage, nothing crazy. I'll put some pictures up on the screen now. And I'd say it was okay. I would have loved to have had a larger space to work on the wrap, but we made do and it came out okay. I do think you can do it in a confined space, but it will add to your frustration, it will add to your time, and it will add to your mistakes. It's also very important to clean the area where you're wrapping. If it's not clean, even if you start wrapping the millisecond after you wipe the car down with alcohol, which you can't do, you have to wait for the alcohol to dry after you wipe it before you can apply the wrap, but you'll still get little particles and dirt and crap on the car between wiping it down and wrapping the panel. So keep that in mind. You need a decent squeegee. I wouldn't recommend cheaping out. I did, and I ended up regretting it. Get a decent squeegee. Get a much better knife than I did. Again, I ended up cheaping out and I ended up regretting it. Learn from my mistakes. Decent squeegee, decent knife. Thankfully, I had a good heat gun, and that's the other thing. Heat is your best friend when you're wrapping. You absolutely do need a heat gun, and get a decent one. It will make your life so much easier when wrapping. I'd also recommend getting a wrapping liquid. For example, Triple S. What this does is you apply it to your squeegee and it allows you to spread the material much easier, and it doesn't scratch the material as you're spreading it. The more helping hands you have, the better, within reason. I had my dad and a bunch of friends to help me, as I shouted out earlier, and that is what you need to wrap a vehicle, especially your first time. It'll be so helpful to have people holding this, holding that, handing you tools, heating the material, and whatnot. Make sure you have at least one helping hand when you do this for the first time. It is night and day. I recommend that when you do this for the first time, you either have a daily that you can take back and forth to work every day, assuming you work a full-time job like I do. You have a daily that you can take back and forth to work every day so you don't have to rush this process, or you take a full week, yes, a full week off work to do it. If I had known how difficult this was going to be, I would have taken at least another 2-3 days off of the 4-day weekend that I had. And what that will do is allow you not to rush, which is, like I've said, the biggest thing. If you can take that full week off work, you can wake up, you can work on the wrap for 8 to 10 hours per day, and you can go to bed at a decent time and get back at it the next day. It'll prevent you from getting burnt out and frustrated. To do this wrap, I also purchased a roll of knifeless tape from 3M. I didn't actually end up using it. Now, there are most definitely places on this car, on the F30 body in particular, where a professional would definitely use knifeless tape, but us amateurs, we couldn't get the hang of it, and we ended up just going without it. And the result is worse because of it, but we literally just couldn't figure it out or make it work for us. I've switched angles here so I can talk about the front bumper, which is the worst panel on the car to wrap. I had wrapped all the other panels on the car when I got to the front bumper, and it was a challenge. It was basically just me with my music in the garage for 6-ish hours. And that was after my dad had helped me set up the material so that it was easiest to work with. I followed this amazing tutorial on YouTube, and it was just a short basically showing what a guy did to set up the material to wrap the front bumper, and I followed his guidance, and it made wrapping the front bumper that much more bearable, but it was still the worst panel on the car to wrap. I inlaid the bottom parts here. I inlaid these, and I'd say that that is absolutely necessary to wrap this bumper. I also inlaid this here, and I'd say that you absolutely must do that in order to do this bumper. You're supposed to do it with knifeless tape. I didn't because I couldn't get the hang of it, and it honestly came out okay, but the closer you look at this front bumper, the worse it does get. We're now at the rear bumper, which I would argue is almost just as bad, or maybe just as bad, as the front bumper. Reason being, I got home from work, and my dad and I thought that the rear bumper was going to be fairly simple. It was not. We ended up being at it for hours and getting super frustrated doing it, and the result does show, but we got it done. One final thing before I end the video. Do not rush the prep work if you're gonna wrap your car yourself. The prep work is so important. And thankfully, I didn't really rush it too much. I did take my time for the most part with the prep work, and I'm thanking myself for it now. I'll detail the prep work that I did out for you so that you can do the same and a little better. Start by washing the car completely, taking it to a car wash or do it in your driveway, whatever you prefer. Wash the car completely, soap and water like you would any other day. Once you're done that, the car has to dry completely. So either let it dry or dry it yourself, but it has to dry completely. Wipe the whole car down with alcohol, at least 70% on a microfiber cloth. And when I say the whole car, I mean absolutely any surface that the wrap will adhere to. I'm talking about the insides of the wheel wells. I'm talking about where you're wrapping it around your doors. I'm talking about under the hood. I'm talking about any surface where the wrap will adhere to. You absolutely must get the dirt off and wipe it down with alcohol. Do the whole car once after you're done washing it, and then each individual panel, before you do the panel, you do it again. What this will do is ensure the wrap will actually stick. And so you don't get done with 60+ hours of wrapping and then it peels. Thankfully, I seem to do a good enough job for the most part on the prep for this car. I've had this wrap on for about 2 weeks now, and I actually had it looks beautiful out today, but I had some terrible weather where I live recently, and it did seem to survive the weather with little to no issue. I also took this car on a little mini road trip just to the big city and back, where I stayed for a night, and it survived the trip no problem. One other thing to note is if you're lower than me and you are running very tight fitment, where you tuck your wrap, if the wheel or tire would be tire, hits it, it will start to peel the wrap where it hits. Now, it shouldn't peel like on the outside of the fender. Ask me how I know, because even though I'm monster truck fitment, this is still rubbing a little bit in here. It seems to be okay. I'm not gonna worry about it because I'm monster truck, so it's not gonna get any worse. But do make note of that if you're running lower or tighter fitment than me. For things like badges, I do recommend getting something called an eraser wheel. I got it from my local hardware store. What it will do is help you take off the adhesive once you take off the badge. To take off the badge, I recommend using the good old fishing line technique. It works wonders. With all that being said, please feel free to DM me on Instagram. I'll leave my handle up on the screen now. If you have any questions about wrapping your own car, I'd be happy to help out. I'm gonna end this video here. I have a ton of content planned with this car coming soon, so stay tuned and thank you for watching.